One stare. That's all it took to silence a cathedral and confirm what royal insiders had whispered for years. At the funeral of the Duchess of Kent, Prince Andrew fixed his eyes on Catherine, Princess of Wales, with a glare so cold, so deliberate, it stopped the room. And standing beside her, Prince William didn't flinch. He didn't smile. He didn't acknowledge his uncle. He just stood still, like a man drawing a line in the sand. For years, rumors have swirled about a growing rift between Prince William and his disgraced uncle. But what happened inside Westminster Cathedral wasn't just family tension, it was a message. A message caught on camera, seen around the world and impossible to ignore. What caused this silent but public showdown? Why did it happen at a moment meant for unity and grief? And how did one funeral become the final nail in the coffin of a royal relationship? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear goes beyond royal protocol. It's about betrayal, loyalty, and the quiet war playing out behind palace walls. To understand the coldness Prince William showed at the Duchess of Kent's funeral, we have to go back to when the cracks first began to show. Long before the death stare, long before the funeral tension, there were whispers behind palace doors. Whispers that Prince Andrew had crossed a line that William would never forgive. According to royal biographer Andrew Looney, the seeds of this feud were sown shortly after Queen Elizabeth II passed. As the monarchy was struggling to find its footing under King Charles, Catherine, Princess of Wales, was quietly rising. Her calm presence and steady hand gave the public a sense of continuity. She wasn't just William's wife, she was becoming the face of the royal family's future, and that's where things got messy. Looney claims that Prince Andrew made an offhand remark about Catherine during this fragile moment. It wasn't just rude, it was laced with jealousy. Aimed squarely at her growing popularity, the comment cut deep. He allegedly mocked her new role, suggesting she was being overly praised, as though her grace and poise were an act. And he didn't say this in private. Insiders say the remark was shared in a way that felt calculated, like Andrew wanted people to question Catherine's worth. For Prince William, it wasn't just an insult, it was an attack on his closest partner. This was the woman he trusted with everything, the mother of his children, and the person he planned to lead the monarchy beside. The idea that Andrew, his own uncle, would belittle her at such a crucial time wasn't just upsetting, it was unforgivable. And from that moment on, everything changed. After that cutting remark about Catherine, Prince William didn't retaliate with words. He didn't need to. Instead, he created distance, slowly, deliberately, and permanently. Insiders say it started with private snubs, a cooling of conversations, fewer invitations. But before long, it was clear. William wanted nothing to do with his uncle. And the truth is, it wasn't just about one comment. By then, Prince Andrew's name had already become a storm cloud over the royal family. Once considered a war hero and a charming public figure, Andrew had earned praise for his military service, particularly during the Falklands War. But all of that faded when his connection to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein came to light. The photos, the allegations, the questions, and then the interview. In 2019, Andrew sat down with the BBC in what was supposed to be a chance to clear his name. Instead, it was a disaster. His answers were evasive, his tone defensive, and his lack of remorse turned public suspicion into outrage. Overnight, his image crumbled. By January 2022, Queen Elizabeth stripped him of all royal patronages and military titles. He was barred from using His Royal Highness in any official capacity. For a man who had built his identity on rank and privilege, it was a public dismantling of his royal stature. But even after all that, Andrew reportedly believed he could still return. That over time the dust would settle. That forgiveness was possible. Prince William didn't agree. For him, Andrew had become a symbol of everything the modern monarchy needed to move past: scandal, entitlement, and defiance without accountability. And when Andrew's name was mentioned in royal strategy meetings or family events, William didn't just raise concerns. He shut it down because in William's eyes, Andrew hadn't just lost public trust. He had disgraced the institution that William was now preparing to lead. Behind the palace gates, a quieter conflict was unfolding, not between Andrew and William, but between William and his own father, King Charles III. And this time, it wasn't about scandal. It was about principle, legacy, and how far loyalty to family should go when that family member brings shame to the crown. King Charles, now thrust into the role of monarch after a lifetime of preparation, was trying to balance two impossible roles, king and brother. He had grown up with Andrew, seen his best and worst moments, and still held a thread of affection for him. Despite the disgrace, despite the public backlash, Charles couldn't fully detach. The bond lingered, quietly but powerfully. It showed itself in small but telling ways. When Andrew needed financial help to settle the legal case in the U.S., it wasn't just lawyers who stepped in, it was Charles. The king quietly provided a personal loan to help his brother avoid complete collapse. But for Prince William, that loan wasn't an act of compassion, it was a warning sign. William reportedly grew increasingly frustrated as Charles offered small gestures of support behind the scenes. He saw it as weakness. To him, any attempt to reintegrate Andrew, no matter how small, sent the wrong message to the public. A message that consequences didn't matter. That scandal could be swept under a rug. That loyalty mattered more than accountability. Royal insiders described heated private discussions. William, normally calm and calculated, made his stance crystal clear. If the monarchy wanted to survive the modern age, it needed to show integrity. And that meant Andrew could never return. Not in private, not in public, not ever. But Charles didn't see it that way. His reign was barely beginning, and already he was being pulled between duty and emotion. He valued unity. He believed in reconciliation. He thought there might still be a path to balance loyalty with responsibility. William didn't. To him, this wasn't a family dispute. It was a test of leadership. Prince William didn't need to make speeches or issue formal statements. Instead, he let his decisions speak for themselves. And those decisions became impossible to ignore. It started with a guest list, something that might seem routine in royal circles. But in this case, it sent a message that echoed louder than words. In December 2024, Catherine hosted her annual Together at Christmas Carol service, an event meant to celebrate kindness, service, and unity within the royal family. The entire Wales family was front and center. The cameras were rolling. The public was watching. And noticeably missing from the pews, Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. Officially, it was explained as a matter of space or logistics, but anyone paying attention knew better. This wasn't just a snub. It was a line in the sand. That absence didn't go unnoticed. Royal watchers and tabloids alike picked up on the silence. And just months later, it happened again. Easter 2025. Prince Andrew arrived at Windsor Castle for the annual church service, dressed formally, waving politely to cameras. But Prince William and Catherine? They were nowhere to be seen. No last-minute change. No illness. No scheduling conflict. They simply didn't show. To some, it looked like coincidence. But to those who knew the inner workings of the royal household, it felt intentional. This was William's way of removing himself from any photo op, any storyline, any public association with his uncle. He wasn't going to be seen smiling beside a man whose name brought scandal and shame. Not during a carol service. Not during Easter. Not ever again. These subtle acts, two empty chairs here, an absent nod there, began to shape a larger narrative. The House of Windsor was changing, and William was leading that change with quiet precision. September 16, 2025, a gray sky hung over Westminster Cathedral as the royal family gathered to honor the life of the Duchess of Kent. The atmosphere was solemn, sacred, and still. The bells tolled softly as guests arrived, one by one, dressed in mourning black. But beneath the silence, something heavier loomed, a tension that had nothing to do with grief and everything to do with unresolved resentment. Prince William and Catherine arrived with the quiet poise that has come to define them. He greeted a few relatives with brief nods, while she followed closely, her face partly veiled, her expression composed. The future king and queen carried the weight of the moment with dignity. They were expected, welcomed, revered, and then came the unexpected. Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson appeared at the cathedral doors, walking side by side. It wasn't just that they had stepped back from royal life, it was that nobody anticipated they would show up at all. Their presence was a disruption, a reminder. And for many inside the cathedral, it felt like a storm cloud entering a fragile space of peace. The service itself moved gently. Scripture was read. Hymns were sung. The Duchess's favorite, Ave Verum Corpus, echoed softly through the stone halls. The organ swelled and fell like a heartbeat. But those paying close attention began to notice something else. Andrew wasn't absorbed in the solemnity of the service. He was watching, looking, staring. More than once, his gaze landed on Catherine, not with warmth, not with sorrow, but with something else, cold, calculated, almost mocking. He sat rigid, occasionally leaning forward to scan the room. When other royals offered soft smiles or exchanged polite acknowledgments, Andrew remained still, his smirk faint but unmistakable. It wasn't just out of place. It was jarring, and no one noticed more than William. The tension in the room thickened with every passing minute. Andrew tried to catch eyes, initiate nods, make small gestures. But no one responded. Even Sarah's gentle attempts to diffuse the awkwardness, quiet whispers, subtle smiles, were met with silence. Around them, the royal family maintained their composure, but the divide was growing more visible with each hymn. This wasn't just a funeral anymore. It was a battlefield of legacy, loyalty, and quiet defiance. And Prince Andrew? He was walking straight into the final confrontation, one that would play out in full view, before the world, in the most sacred of spaces. As the final hymn faded and the congregation rose for closing prayers, Prince Andrew made his move. Inch by inch, he shifted toward the aisle, toward Prince William and Catherine. His steps were slow, deliberate, almost defiant. Sarah Ferguson lingered behind him, her eyes filled with concern, as if she knew what was about to happen. Prince William stood tall, gaze fixed forward. Catherine mirrored his poise, her face half-veiled, unwavering. Andrew leaned in, trying to catch William's attention. But William didn't blink, didn't speak, didn't move. He stood like stone. Catherine never looked his way. It was the clearest rejection imaginable, and it played out in total silence before the eyes of the royal family, the press, and the public. The message was unmistakable. Andrew no longer belonged. After the service, many assumed Andrew would slip away quietly. He didn't. Hours later, he was seen leaving home in a black Range Rover, expression smug, posture bold. No apology. No remorse. The public was stunned. Even loyalists were shaken. For Andrew to make such a bold appearance so soon, after such disrespect, was viewed as not just tone-deaf, but deeply offensive to the Duchess of Kent's legacy. Catherine, Duchess of Kent, lived in stark contrast to Andrew. She gave up titles, taught music in underserved schools, and walked away from royal privilege to serve quietly. Her charity, Future Talent, gave underprivileged children the gift of music. Where Andrew clung to status, Catherine chose humility. And on the day meant to honor her, Andrew's behavior tarnished the dignity she spent her life upholding. Prince William's silence at the funeral wasn't just personal, it was historic. It wasn't just about defending Catherine. It was about defending the memory of a woman who represented what the royal family should be: dignified, selfless, and strong. By refusing to acknowledge his uncle, William didn't start a feud, he ended one. The monarchy is built on symbols, and at Westminster Cathedral, Prince William gave the world one more. A silent final judgment, one that says respect must be earned, and once it's lost, not even blood can bring it back. Was he right? Or did he go too far? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more royal revelations.